Hello, everyone. It's Jordyn Smith, the voice and the astrologer for this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. Today, I am going to be talking to you all about this upcoming Venus retrograde cycle. Um, and the reason why I want to make this video today, January 28th, is because Venus is at the same degree and minute that she will be when she stations direct at the end of the cycle of retrogradation. So what this is reflecting is we are in the pre-shadow. This is starting to plant the seeds of what it is we are going to be revisiting uh, in order to resolve, which is a retrograde function. Before I get into these charts, I did want to announce for those of you who wanted to sign up for the Working with the Virgo Pisces Nodal Cycle Workshop, um, that filled up. I have opened that up for another date. It's the second session. It is on March 15th at 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's open to 5 people. I already emailed one person who wanted me to put them on the list so that way they could, you know, sign up for that. It's $45. We will be working with your own natal chart. After I teach about these dynamics and I will be answering any questions we will go over in each one of your individual charts, what this is bringing up for you, and also it's bringing in the rulers of these nodes, your natal Mercury and Neptune. And I'll also be going over why it's important to look at the south planetary node of Mercury and the north planetary node of Neptune, dealing with this Virgo Pisces nodal cycle. So that is on my website if you want to sign up for that. So without further ado, let's really talk about this Venus retrograde cycle. Something that I want to say is I have wrote an extensive article going over in depth a few of the things that I'm going to go over to segue into these event charts that I'm going to pull up and speak to. But in the article, it goes over the archetype of Venus retrograde. It goes over how Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, which is also being pulled into this Venus retrograde cycle, meaning that it's pulling in Neptune, the north node, and also the south node and Mercury for each one of us. I also go into what Venus is speaking to whenever she's retrograde in the sign of Aries and when she's in the sign of Pisces. And yeah, it's extensive. The charts are on that. I posted the charts, the event charts in that article as well. Again, I will post a link to that article in the description for you all. So let's get into this. Today, Venus enters her pre-shadow, as I said. It's speaking to how it's planting these seeds of what it is we're going to be revisiting. And that will happen through the last degrees of Pisces up till the 10th degree of Aries. That it's really, these are the hot spots is what I would say, that will be planting seeds. Venus will not exit her post-shadow period until May 16th when she reaches 10 degrees and 48 minutes of Aries. So even once she stations direct, that's having us pass back over for the third time those degrees, um, in order for us to start to implement the necessary action that we're needing to take from what we learned during the retrograde cycle. Just to kind of explain, Venus, whenever she is retrograde in a transit, even in a natal chart, it's really speaking to the inner expression of Venus, meaning Taurus, how we relate to ourselves, what our personal values are, what we need, what we give meaning to, what it takes to be self-reliant, self-sustaining, what it means to internally actualize these dynamics and not create dependencies on external factors in order to do that. And um, it's where we are looking at what we're trying to actualize through inwardly relating to something different through the signs of Aries and Pisces during her retrograde. This is also a time period where we are reliving, redoing in order to resolve certain dynamics, dealing with our inner relationship to ourselves. On a collective level, this is where we're reliving and revisiting certain dynamics around values, meaning, beliefs, uh, resources, all types of things on a collective level in order to liberate from them, in order to give us a chance to resolve them. This is really important when we're looking at this retrograde cycle on collective and individual levels, because Venus in the sign of Pisces is about culmination and it's about transcending limitations. With Venus, it's our own inner limitations, especially whenever she's retrograde. But I want you to think about this. At the beginning of January, the nodes entered into the sign of Virgo and Pisces. That North Node in Pisces is speaking to the choices that we are needing to make through re-experiencing these Virgo-like dynamics of how we need to improve upon different things. Neptune, the ruler of that North Node in Pisces, the higher octave of Venus. But Venus in the sign of Pisces is wanting us to culminate something. And as she enters into Aries, before she retrogrades, it's really seeding into our consciousness the desires that we're needing to look at how we want to actualize them, if we want to actualize them, in order to rebirth a new way of inwardly relating to ourselves. But this is also, as she retrogrades back into Pisces, it's giving us an opportunity to culminate the dynamics that we were experiencing 18 months when the South Node was in Libra and the North Node was in Aries. So you can be re-experiencing anything that you did not wrap up during that 18-month cycle. And now it's creating an awareness around how to heal, how to dissolve and culminate through self-improving upon these functions. And that's funneling in this Pisces Virgo nodal axis now. So for some people, this can be if they made excuses for things around how they relate to others or in their relationships with others, viewing others, giving them ultimate meaning, or viewing only the potential, they might be revisiting those same dynamics that they were experiencing at that time in order for them to resolve it. It's like the last hoorah of dealing with this. And it's initiating a inner dynamic of working on our own inner dynamics of how we relate to ourselves. If we want to change how we relate to others, we absolutely have to change how we relate to ourselves. And Venus, when expressed through the higher octave of Neptune, is really about self-actualizing from within oneself and not depending upon anyone else. This can also be a time period where people from our past, our prior relationships, if there's something that is not resolved, all of a sudden they can come back into our lives to give us an opportunity to resolve some type of dynamic. So it's important for me to speak about this. And so now the other dynamic is we need to remember that Uranus and Taurus is now stationed direct, or well, it's going to be during this time. It stations direct tomorrow. It is going to be ruled by this Venus retrograde cycle. So anything that's needing to be transformed from within on how you relate to yourself is going to be brought up in order for that liberation to occur, especially whenever there's been an over-identification with some type of dynamic dealing with trauma, values, um, how we cultivate self-reliance, self-esteem. Anything can be triggered and up for grabs in order for us to improve further on how we inwardly relate. And Uranus is there to bring further objectivity and a place of integration for this transformative process, because Uranus is going to be direct during this time. The other thing I want to speak to is whenever Venus stations retrograde, she is going to be ruled by Mars. Mars is going to be direct at that time. Mars was also the ruler of the North Node in Aries. So we can see how we're revisiting these dynamics that were in the last nodal cycle of Libra Aries in order to wrap this up, revisit in order to resolve. So this gives us an opportunity, and I'm going to speak more directly to this on personal levels. I'll try to bring in some of the collective energy, but you can apply what I'm saying to the macro instead of the micro. Or vice versa, whichever way you want to look at it. So here we go. And I took out all of the aspects just to make this easier for us to look at. So in America, this is going to be March 2nd, not the 3rd, but this is Greenwich time here. But so on March 2nd in America, Venus is going to station retrograde in the 4th house of this chart at 10 degrees, 48 minutes, Aries. She is going to be ruled by Mars in Cancer, who is ruled by the moon and Aries in the 5th house, conjunct this Chiron, both in the 5th house. We want to pull in this Uranus because it's ruled by Venus. We also want to pull in this Neptune and Mercury. They're conjunct, and they are the rulers of the nodes. And Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. And these are happening in the 4th house of this chart as well. Also, Pluto, it's ruled by this Uranus. Pluto's in the 2nd house. So, and I'll just do this. So, notable mention, North Node of Venus and North Node of Mars are conjunct the moon and Chiron in this chart. So we can see that something about evolving our inner relationship to self, our desires, and our emotional dynamics are up for grabs in order for us to resolve this. Venus in Aries in this 4th house retrograde is really about relating to our ways or revisiting ways that we've related to ourselves through the Aries function. Are you able to be independent? Are you needing to revisit anger, especially if you feel like your independence is being thwarted by some type of external force? You're not being able to act on what it is that you're desiring to do. Mars and Cancer in the 8th house can confront us with these emotional dynamics in order to help us to resolve them, especially changing our awareness around wounding, around our own independence and autonomy, and the need to act on our desires in a responsible way. This Venus helps us to liberate Uranus and Taurus through self-improving, Uranus and Taurus in the 6th house, dynamics of where we are needing to transform the ways we relate to our independence and our ability to act on our desires. This can also be a time where we are having desires seeded into our consciousness in order for us to discern whether or not they are meant to be acted upon. With Neptune being the higher octave of Venus and the North Node's ruler, and it is conjunct Mercury, Mercury's in a new phase to that Neptune. This is where we're making choices around how to tap into our pure emotion, even if it's the intense experiences of anger, in order to resolve this through healing this. And it's from within oneself. Venus and Aries having the courage to look within and to heal this. The south node of Virgo is in the 10th house, ruled by that Mercury conjunct Neptune. What old mental dynamics do you need to look at, especially regarding if you feel guilt, shame, or judgment that's needing to be improved upon in order for you to actualize what it is that you're trying to actualize? Pluto and Aquarius in the second house of this chart is really reflecting working on the inner relationship through liberating from where we've over-identified with certain values or needs that have been projected upon others. And then Uranus, its ruler in Taurus in the sixth house, is the need to improve upon transforming how we inwardly relate to ourselves through creatively actualizing from within ourselves. This chart truly speaks to the need for us to look at all types of ways we have felt disempowered, or where we felt guilt or shame or judgment, and how that could have thwarted our independence. It's asking for us to look at how we initiate a new cycle of inwardly relating to ourselves on an emotional level. And that is because we, on a collective level, are so conditioned to suppress our pure emotion, the emotions that are deemed bad. And this is a time that can really trigger this in order for us to feel them, to heal them, and then to look at how we have related to them through our mental constructs. This can also be where we start to get ideas about and ideas coming from within our soul as a way to co-create, to initiate some type of dynamic that can promote healing for ourselves and for other people through purposeful work. This is not going to be everyone, but it can be some people. Going back to the whole dynamic of sexuality, for some people, this can be where they are looking at where they felt guilty, that it's been learned guilt, and they have not acted on their independence and freedom to sexually actualized. And if there's any type of distortion stemming from suppression on an emotional level, and the need to really heal that in order for a restructuring to occur and a new birthing process. It's also where liberating from traumatic experiences of over-identifying with how we related to trauma, that is creating a situation where we're disempowered and not empowered. This chart is also speaking to really revisiting dynamics of where we might have been too comfortable with our emotional dependencies upon other people, and we're needing to blaze our own trail. And so it's bringing all of this content up in order to resolve it. For a lot of people, this can be a time period where if they've had sexual trauma, especially within family systems, or with not having discernment around partners in the past, or who they were around or who they hung out with, they can be revisiting this in order to heal and in order to take responsibility for their own healing and their own growth, and not allowing it to impede upon them moving forward and actualizing on what it is that they want to. Again, this can be a time where we kind of feel like we're in an identity crisis. Oh my gosh, I want to do this and I'm scared. This can be because Mars is in a cardinal sign, Venus is in a cardinal sign, Chiron's in a cardinal sign, and the moon is in a cardinal sign. Venus is in a cardinal house. The north node is in a cardinal house. The south node is in a cardinal house. Cardinal signs and houses are speaking, they're initiatory. And there is a dynamic of two steps forward, one step back whenever it comes to the cardinal archetype. And the two steps forward is I'm initiating this, and the one step back is, oh my gosh, this does not feel comfortable. I feel fear, Aries, Mars. And it's because that fear is coming from a place of this is unknown territory. I'm about to do something that's going to help me evolve, but my security lies within these old emotional patterns that are familiar and known. And so this is giving us a time to revisit this in order for us to be able to resolve it for when Mars re-enters into Aries after it stations direct, and we can really empower ourselves through healing this dynamic or understanding the bottom line of it and choosing to have that moment of jumping off the high dive and just having faith. It can cultivate that for us. We've got to deal with whatever comes up on how we're relating to the Aries energy on an inner level. So Venus re-enters Pisces on March 27th. Here in America, it could be on the 26th, depending on your time zone. And whenever she re-enters Pisces, she is going to be conjunct again to Neptune. The first conjunction happens on the 31st of January. She's going to be conjunct Neptune in the 11th house, conjunct this north node, sitting there with her um, octave transformer. And Uranus is going to be in the 12th house in Taurus. South Node is going to be in the 5th house, and it is ruled by Mercury retrograde in Aries. Pluto is going to be in the 9th house. It's also ruled by this Uranus. So what is this reflecting? As Venus re-enters into Pisces, this gives us a dynamic of where we could be really called to access that higher octave of Neptune, of where we are releasing temporal values in order to self-actualize through more timeless and universal values. For some people, this can be where a crisis in conscious, not a crisis in consciousness, that for some people, this can be where they might be experiencing a disillusioning situation dealing with a relationship because maybe whenever the nodes were in Libra and Aries, they were seeing the potential or not seeing reality clearly because they were giving ultimate meaning or had a different belief about the person. And this can be any type of relationship, okay? And what this can do is it can help you through that disillusioning experience and revisiting that dynamic to see the truth, to have it exposed in order for self-improvement to occur, in order for you to start self-actualizing through inwardly relating to yourself on a different level. So this could be a hard period for some people. This is also where other people are revisiting dynamics of where they had escapist tendencies, and it can teach them, why were you escaping? What were you escaping from? And the need to objectify this in order to heal that dynamic. For other people, this can be a time where they are having things seeded into their consciousness around how they want to improve upon their relationship to spirit. And so that can be where they are starting to really understand through objective awareness from an internalized level, um, what the belief structures that they have over-identified with in the past, Pluto and Aquarius in the 9th house, and where that liberation needs to occur in order to understand more timeless values. It's where all of a sudden one could be disillusioned from realizing, oh, I believed in something I should not have. That was actually a distortion, and I bought into it as truth whenever it was not. It was an illusion. With Mercury retrograde in Aries in the 11th house, conjunct the sun, balsamic to the sun, and Mercury ruling that south node in Virgo in the 5th house, it's really helping us to revisit how we can creatively self-actualize through having the courage to initiate different types of thinking. Again, this is going to bring up all types of different belief structures that are needing to be dissolved and liberated from Jupiter's, in that 12th house. Things are wanting to culminate. Pluto's in the 9th house. Things are wanting to be liberated from. They're wanting to be objectified. That way, more understanding of natural, timeless values can occur, and you can inwardly relate to yourself in a very different way. Mars is trining Saturn in this chart. It's in the 2nd house. This is where Saturn is in the 10th house. Through doing this work, revisiting even past dynamics where we're recalling through memories because of this 11th house energy and Pluto and Aquarius. For some of us, we could be recalling memories of where we felt disillusioned, and there's something we're needing to revisit in order to heal that so we don't continue to project that onto the present. Saturn and Pisces in that 10th house is really where, hey, it's speaking to as we liberate Aquarius on that midheaven, we are restructuring our consciousness. And through the trine to Mars and Cancer in the 2nd house, we're inwardly relating to ourselves on a different level through becoming more secure on an emotional level. And it can be where people are truly feeling like they're spiritualizing however they see God or creator, whatever you want to call it. They can really feel like this is a time where they're able to revisit these emotional dynamics and nurture them in order to heal them because they're being able to have the veil or the illusion or the suppression be lifted in order to really tap into that. This is also time on a collective level. We will be revisiting collective disillusionment. What is hidden is going to come out. This can be within technology. This can also be within medical science. There's lots of signatures for this with Virgo in the 11th house happening. And this is where collective disillusionment can start to occur. But this is also where community, through that crisis of collective disillusionment, can start to get in alignment with more natural values rooted in inclusivity if we make the choice to do that. At the very least, it's going to start to plant the seeds of this. And so different groupings of people, 11th house, can start to improve upon how they want to relate to others in the future moving forwards so that this doesn't happen anymore. This is a way that I really see this Venus re-entering into the sign of Pisces. Ultimately, if you're accessing that higher octave of Neptune, there is a propensity to truly transform old dynamics of how you relate to yourself, to heal and to culminate them, especially going back to whatever you might be revisiting from the last nodal cycle. There's some type of information around how to improve upon this further in order to heal and to liberate and to culminate and to transform. And it will help you generate more self-love. It will also start to transform your inner vibration and who you attract to yourself. This is beautiful. Then we have, oh, that one on this. Then we have Venus stationing direct April 13th here in America, other parts of the world, April 14th, Venus is stationing direct in this 2nd house in Pisces at 2438. She is balsamic to Saturn, and her ruler, Neptune, the octave transformer, is in Aries in the 3rd. Uranus is in the 4th. Mars is in the 7th in Cancer, trining this Mercury, the South Node ruler. The moon that rules Mars is in the 9th house in Scorpio, ruled by this Pluto in the 1st. This chart is absolutely speaking to taking whatever it was that you learned throughout this retrograde cycle and healing your inner relationship to self, and how that can be a way to transform and change your consciousness in order to initiate a new evolutionary cycle. And we will continue to take these seeds in order to improve upon strengthening our soul. That's seen with the South Node in that eighth house. And it's also helping us to heal our own thinking around these dynamics with Mercury and Pisces in that second house, how that correlates to how we relate to ourselves, how that correlates to our inner emotions. Uranus and Taurus, ruled by that Venus, is where we truly can start to feel like we're liberating from these emotional dynamics that we feel like, oh my gosh, these are patterns that I've been dealing with for so long. Some of them I wasn't aware. I'm aware of it now, and I am going to absolutely liberate from this. Mars and Cancer in the seventh house, trining Mercury, is going to help us to relate to others in a different way, because we're going to start relating to ourselves in a different way. And it's going to help us cultivate those new emotional patterns that help to fortify that inner relationship to self, that second house, that Uranus and Taurus. Pluto is helping us to initiate the throwing off of the old, the liberating from it. The moon is square Pluto. The moon is in that ninth house. It's helping us to metamorphose our beliefs through improving upon them. Virgo on that ninth house cusp, conditioning that. And through doing that, through this metamorphosis of psychological, emotional dynamics, we then get to heal our inner relationship to self. This chart speaks to so much healing. It also speaks to the other dynamic is this is a time where whatever work that you're doing on an internal level, it can be where you could be, depending on where you're at. It could be something that plants a seed for you to be able to utilize it as purposeful work, as a way to bring more community together. It's not going to be everyone, it's going to be different people, but this truly is a retrograde cycle that speaks to so much healing. If you have the courage to utilize this energy in a conscious way, whatever comes up that you are revisiting, to not get hung up on guilt or shame or, oh my gosh, futility, none of that. It's about taking this to self-improve, giving yourself grace, and taking the necessary steps to start to cultivate a new way of inwardly relating. On a collective level, we could definitely see a lot of projections, a lot of things being exposed. Um, but we can also see through some people becoming disillusioned that they now want to use that as a way to educate other people to help heal the collective unconscious. We can also see people who might have been hiding for a long time to liberate themselves from that hiding because they feel a higher calling to start doing purposeful work that can really start to help improve the collective. So this is, I'm wanted to give a snapshot of this for you all so you can start to understand how these dynamics can come up. Of course, it's going to be different for each and every one of you. You have a Neptune and a Mars in your own houses and your own signs. You've got your own natal Mercury as well. And you've got this transiting Venus happening in your own chart by house and aspecting different things. These are some of the underlying core dynamics. Again, I go into this in further depth in that article. And as we move into this retrograde cycle, I will be talking about it weekly. I'm going to start doing more in-depth weekly astrology forecast again, because there's more to talk about. Also, just remember that this Piscean energy is about releasing and surrendering, um, and healing, even if it comes through disillusioning situations that are triggered. What it is doing is it's helping us to see a truth where maybe we were buying into an illusion, whether it be personally or collectively. And it is trying to get us to transform the ways in which we relate to ourselves and to tap into that North Node and Pisces and Neptune, its ruler and the octave transformer of Venus. And again, I go into that in further detail in that article. So I hope that this is beneficial. I hope that it helps you. Again, I will be talking more and more about this as this comes up. And Venus only retrogrades every 100 and what is it? Every 18 months, excuse me. It retrogrades the least out of all of the planets for the least amount of time, and it packs a punch. Just to give an example, when Venus was retrograde in Leo, it was conjunct my composite with my then husband's south node, the composite chart south node. The south node had just entered Libra at 29 degrees, conjuncting my natal moon. And I was revisiting relational dynamics, and I chose to make a new choice around leaving that. Venus can totally retrograde, bring up prior dynamics from this lifetime and from past lifetimes where you will feel the call and you have to trust that Taurus side, your inner voice. And that is key. Even if you feel confused, to trust that inner voice, your instinct and your intuition about how to move forwards. And if it is rooted in you being self-reliant and self-sustaining, you absolutely cannot go wrong. So I will see you all soon and have a great week.